Hi guys, so this week we're going to be doing a lot of work with math in the kitchen. So since we're cooped up at home, we should be cooking for ourselves, and I'm sure your parents will appreciate it if you can help them out. And so not only are we going to talk about cooking, but this will review some of the math concepts from earlier in the year, like fractions and working with ratios. So tonight I'm going to be making a Portuguese green soup. So let's take a look at the recipe. Right here. Back up. And so now, when I make this, I like to make more than this recipe. I can't double it because then it won't fit in my soup pot, so I make 1.5 times the recipe. So what we're gonna do is multiply each ingredient by 1.5. And there's a couple different ways we can do that. So if I have something with a fraction in it, I've got 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil, and I need to multiply that by 1.5. So I'm going to write this as an improper fraction, and I'm going to multiply it by 1.5. And so I'm also going to turn that 1.5 into an improper fraction. So I'm doing 3 halves times 3 halves. That's the same as doing 1.5 times 1.5. So remember, I multiply my numerators together, and I multiply my denominators together. And I get 9/4. So it seems kind of weird saying 9/4 of a tablespoon. So I'm going to make that back into a mixed number by dividing 9 by 4. I know 4 goes into 9 twice, and I have 1 left over. So this would be 2 1/4 tablespoons. So let's do another one with a fraction. Say I want to figure out how much pepper I need. So the original recipe calls for 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, but I need 1.5 times as much. So I'm going to multiply that by 3 halves, and that gets me 3/4 of a teaspoon. So that's one strategy for multiplying by 1.5. You turn 1.5 into an improper fraction, and then you multiply. Here's another strategy. Let's take the 8 cups of broth. If I want to multiply that by 1.5, here's how I think about it. I do 8 times 1 plus half of 8. So I know 8 times 1 is 8, and half of 8 is 4, and I add those together. Focus, honey, come on. And I get 12 cups of broth. I'll show you that strategy one more time too. Let's do it with the potatoes. So if I'm doing 4 potatoes times 1.5, I know 4 times 1 is 4, plus half of 4 is 2, so that means I need 6 potatoes. So you guys are going to have the option of doing this with either one of my pasta sauce recipes, or you can find your own recipe from a cookbook or online, and you can apply this to your own recipe. And you'll be doubling the recipe and also multiplying the recipe by 1.5. Hope you enjoy.